the start of another reading vlog. This is the reading vlog where I'm going to let my hyperfixation win. Before we dive into the TBR itself, first a word from this video sponsor, which is Cozy Earth. So, hi guys, I'm so excited to say I am partnering up with Cozy Earth for this video, and I'm also going to be documenting my thoughts and feelings about their incredible products over the next couple months as well. But if you're not familiar, Cozy Earth makes an array of amazing products that basically bring all the coziness to your life. From clothing items to bedding and bath items, they truly have it all. And Clay and I are now the proud owners of the Cozy Earth Deluxe Bedding Bundle, which is truly the softest thing and also made responsibly with bamboo, which I think is amazing. The other cool thing about the bundle is you can actually mix and match colors, and we have the duvet cover in oat and our sheets in white. A personal goal of mine going into the fall winter season was that I wanted to upgrade my sheets and bedding to just make it as soft, cozy and fluffy as possible. So I'm thrilled to have this incredible new bedding from Cozy Earth. Again, I will be sharing my thoughts and feelings about this amazing sheet and duvet set with you guys further as I have more nights slept in it. But so far, I'm not gonna lie, I've been sleeping pretty dang good. Everything is so soft, but still keeps me cool, which I feel like is key because I do live in Texas. But again, thank you to Cozy Earth for sponsoring this video. But without further ado, let's go ahead and dive back into the vlog. Here's the deal. Over the past few weeks, I have gotten addicted to one fantasy series. It has completely taken over my brain. It has completely taken over my life. And instead of trying to space it out, read other books in between, I've just decided for this vlog and for this week to just allow myself to read as many pages of this series as possible in hopes of getting it out of my system so I can pivot to other fall books that are on my TBR. And the book series I'm talking about is the Faithful and the Fallen series by John Gwynne. I've already done a reading vlog featuring Malice a few weeks ago, and I thought that would be enough, but here I am a few vlogs later going to be reading as much of the series as possible. Right now I have about 170 pages or so left of Valor, which is book 2, and I have all of book 3 at my disposal, which is well over 700 pages. This series is just so gripping. The plot, the characters, the intensity of everything, the escalation, and how John Gwynne plays with you. It just becomes impossible to put down. People talk about how addicting this series is, and I was like, okay, but it's really completely true. And it's a combination of taking his time with the pacing in book 1 and then escalating everything eventually, but you're like committed to the characters. You hate people, you love people, you're frustrated, you're excited, you're shocked, you're intrigued. It completely has it all. So anyway, this is going to be an ode to the Faithful and the Fallen. We're gonna read all of book 2, definitely. We're gonna finish book 2 and see if I can finish the entirety of book 3 or almost finish book 3. We'll see where we're at. And yeah, that's the plan, everyone. Anyway, I flew through my workday today because all I wanted to do was read Valor. So that's what we're gonna do now. So we're gonna heat up a cup of coffee and get a snack and sit down and do some reading. Lone pumpkin mug ready for a coffee session. I think this needs to be heated up a bit. In you go. And then for a snack, I received a PR package of this like fall popcorn. I have candy corn and pumpkin spice and this maple brown sugar popcorn. And this is really good. So I'm gonna give myself some of this to have. Yum. Wanna try this popcorn? So good. Snacks and coffee acquired, so we're gonna sit down and do a reading sprint. I have about 190 pages left of the second book. And I owe y'all a reading update in general, but I'm gonna do a little bit of reading first because I've been waiting all day. After chapter of torture. I want to scream and then we pivot to another point of view. Hi friends, I owe you a reading update and just an overview of the book series that I'm predominantly featuring in this vlog. So I just sat down and read 80 pages, and I'm definitely feeling like I'm gonna finish this book tonight because it's kind of ruining my life and I need to see where it's going to take me next. But The Faithful and the Fallen series, the series that I'm featuring in this video, what is it about? So it is a multi-POV tale with lots and lots of characters. It's highly political, and I would say stylistically from a writing style point of view, and the chosen one element and the good versus evil, like classic setup and fight, reminds me a little bit of The Wheel of Time, but structurally in the intensity of all the perspectives and how political it is, and kind of how dark and how it pivots. There's just constant cliffhanger after cliffhanger. It reminds me a bit of Game of Thrones. It wholly stands on its own. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm just using that as a way, like as a comparison point, so you can kind of get the overall vibe of this tale, but this is wholly its own original story, and I am so hooked. So obviously I featured the first book, Malice, which introduces us to this world, which is essentially a fantasy landscape where thousands of years prior to the start of the novel, there was this great conflict and war between humans and giants. This conflict was also spurred and created by like the god of evil named Astaroth, and the god of good didn't notice that Astaroth was meddling in this conflict until near the very end, and they have been kind of rivals ever since. Fast forward to present day, at the beginning of the series, there's a prophecy that basically says this war and conflict is going to be happening once again. There's a black star, and who's like the figure of evil, Astaroth's champion, if you will, and then there's the good guy's champion, and they're going to be fighting, and the, you know, fate of the world is at stake, if you will. So huge stakes. Again, lots of characters, but there's a very clear chosen one. But we're kind of going in so many different directions. Book one is definitely more slower paced, which again, I think was to the series' benefit. We're introduced to what I describe as like 3 levels of characters. First, we have characters who are unknown origin, unknown age, know a lot, and are meddling with various characters, pulling strings, and are bringing people together to participate on either side of this good versus evil conflict. They are magical, they are knowledgeable, and they are tight-lipped, unfortunately. Then we have characters who are politically very powerful and are kind of involved with these meddling figures in one way or another. Either they're completely aware of who they're working for, or they're being duped or tricked by who they're working for, or they're like willingly working for the good guys. It's a combination of a variety of things here. Then we have characters who you often tend to like very much, who don't know anything, or just trying to live their lives, and now they're kind of pulled into a million different directions because of this rising conflict and event. In book one, we spend a lot of time getting to know a lot of characters, getting to know their everyday life, getting to know the political structure of this sort of kingdom, and you very quickly get the understanding that it's kind of like a traditional medieval setup. Kings rule different regions, people sort of just vibe, live their life, but now there's one figure who's looking to centralize all of this power under one empire, his empire. So he is creating an army, and lots of like pockets of conflict are beginning to happen because of this. Lots of alliances are happening because of this, and like war is imminent, and it's kind of like the kickoff to this like larger conflict too. So throughout the series, as I've mentioned, I really cannot emphasize enough how many perspectives there are, and it's a really cool thing that John Gwynne does, because you definitely have core characters that you're reading from, but you also are reading situations from lots of different points of views, giving you perspective and just different insight on what is going on, because you only can glean like the political stakes of what's happening from whomever you're reading for, and it just creates very tense and stressful situations. I would say though, we do have a primary main character who is Corbain, who is like the chosen one figure. We follow him as he grows up, trains, we follow his friends, his sister, who are all close to him, as they kind of go off into the world, try to stay safe, save each other, and you know, take on the forces of evil, if you will. But this book is not straightforward at all. Storylines are constantly branching, characters are finding themselves in new places, and it's so interesting because sometimes you'll be following a character and you're like, why am I following him? And it's not even because that character is important, it's because a character like in the background of his perspectives are important, and like who you're reading from and the characters shuffling in and out of the book are always evolving, which just keeps the narrative so fresh. And also, this is definitely a book full of gray morality. Like, obviously there's like good and evil, but it's not so like perfectly honorable. Like, people can make transformation, and that's definitely a big part of this book too, but it's just hooked me immensely. Book one, I liked. I was interested. By the end, I was like, whoa, what is going on? But by the time book two has gotten into full swing, it's like John Gwen lit a match at the end of book one, and everything is just exploding now through book two, and I'm assuming through the end. Just all of the political maneuverings, the reveals, the characters, the locations, the quests, the combat, it is like so good, but almost like so painful to read. Please understand, it is so painful. Like, every time you feel like someone's got the upper hand or someone gets the upper hand, you pivot somewhere else and like everything is falling apart. It's just utilizing that multi-POV, multiple location, like large scale conflict so well. And you just get so enmeshed into everyone's lives. It's just so delicious. I'll talk more about who my favorite characters are in this book and just in general, or my favorite perspectives to read, let's say, because there are many. But I just feel like John Gwen has done such a good job to make so many different compelling perspectives and slowly giving us insight that rounds out these perspectives even more. Because I had so many questions in book one and I was like, I want more info. And then you slowly get that more info and it just colors things in a little bit more and you're like, oh no. So that's how you find yourself addicted. So I started this vlog with almost 200 pages of this book left. I now have 80 pages of this book left. I'm definitely going to finish it. The entire thing has been impossible to put down, but the ending sequence in particular has just been so shocking, as you saw with my reading sprint. Like one thing after another, and I am so stressed. But anyway, this has to be the longest clip of all time, but I wanted to give you like an overview, my feelings. I'm going to be talking more about my feelings and other things about the series I'm really liking, but that's just like a good setup, you know? But anyway, I'm going to get back to Valor because I just simply need to know what's going to happen next. I'm hooked, okay? I need a palate cleanser, so I'm going to watch some Gilmore Girls while doing this cozy puzzle for a little while. So that's the plan. Very happy with my puzzle progress. Made great work of the bottom part of this puzzle. So cheers to that. It is now time to make dinner. Then I'm gonna hang out with Clay for a bit and then I'll get back to reading. I'm in the home stretch of Valor, which again is book 2, and I wanna scream. There's so much happening, so I'm definitely gonna finish that tonight. Then I'll have read just under 200 pages so far for this vlog. I might even start the 3rd book tonight too, just depending on when I start reading. But first, dinner. She's so cute. We are in bed and I'm officially gonna finish Valor. Even brought Ruin to bed to start if I don't fall asleep, which I think I'll be able to start this too. But about 80 pages left and I'm sure it's gonna ruin my life, and then I'll just immediately pivot into this. Coffee, coffee, coffee. I'm still processing the end of Valor, which I did finish last night. And I also started Ruin. And there's a lot going on. There's a lot going on in my head, in my heart, but first I need some caffeine to process. Then I will give you guys an update. Guys, good morning. Though, to be fair, I'm actually incredibly emotionally distressed right now, so I don't know how good it really is, but I have so many reading updates for you. First and foremost, I finished Valor last night, so I read the final 190 pages of this book yesterday. And let me just give you my collective thoughts and feelings about book 2. So obviously this series is again about this fight versus good and evil. The first book, like not really a lot happened. It was really about setting the board, meeting power players, meeting characters and their life so you can get situated with them and then inevitably watch their life fall apart and all of the small conflicts kind of begin to heat up. Book 1 was kind of like putting a boulder on a hill. Book 2 was beginning to watch it like crash to the ground, and I know the speed at which this boulder is going to move is only going to get faster and faster in books 3 and 4. But book 2 was so hard to put down. Not only did it kick off this conflict, and it really hooked me because of that, but I really appreciated the pacing plot-wise and combat-wise that John Gwen did within the second installment, because again, keep in mind, there's a lot left to happen. And the scale of these conflicts were actually like much smaller than what is probably going to be like the end scale battle, which I think was really smart, because not only was it interesting in this, but he's going to be able to scale it up and make everything worse and worse and more intense, like book over book over book, which I believe is going to happen. Two, I felt like we not only got situated further with the characters we know and like, but I do feel like we got some questions answered. I feel like book one was a lot of character building. Book two, we finally got some lore, some worlds, some magic buildings to go alongside our characters. So I feel like I don't have all the answers by any means, but I have some. And it's left me a lot to ponder. Like, it's presented me even more questions to ask, you know what I mean? This series is also just so hard to put down. The combination of all the different locations and characters just makes it so intriguing, and people are moving all over the place all of the time, and actually quite a lot of time has already passed throughout this series, which I appreciate. Not only because I feel like it allows for things to sort of simmer, slowly build, and realistically play out, especially because people are moving on the ground. So, you know, it's gonna take a while to walk from one side of the world to another. But I think it just like allows characters to grow not only emotionally, but like through time. So we have very interesting character arcs to interact with and explore. I also will say this book made me want to scream so many different times. There's different categories of characters, because this is very plot forward, but also very character forward, which I think is so fun. You have characters that you know and love, and you have known and loved them since book one. You have characters that you hate so much, and there's always new characters entering this field, and there's character arcs, so people kind of move in and out of this. I hate them so much, but there are a few key characters that I have hated so much in this book. Wow. And then there are characters who either you want to wake up so badly or like force in situations, but you like know that they could be good if just given the chance. I scream for them too. Oh my God, do I scream for them. But I felt like book two also did a great job expanding and growing on characters we already know, plot lines that we already know, but introducing us to new characters to fall in love with or to hate, and expanding and growing this world in conflict to just like new heights. At the end of this book, it was so intense, and you're beginning to kind of see again how large this conflict is going to be. We've seen skirmishes in book two, we've seen battles and fights in book two, but things are starting to get real at the end of book two, which brings me to book three, which I have already read 100 pages of, and oh my gosh, every book basically takes place immediately after the events of the previous book because things are just moving so fast. And it's actually wild to reflect on like how much has happened and where some of our characters are now at the beginning of book three versus book one. And it's also so interesting to see how your favorite characters evolve and change. Like, I have new fave characters that I literally would have never expected. There are characters that I was reading from in book one and being like, why are you here? I don't care about you at all. I'm bored, moving on. And now those characters, some of my favorites, okay? Let's just say a certain grizzled swordsman who's in the background of a random character, Castell, in book one, could not care about. Center stage, I sob at his chapters. Oh, and Fidel, another side character that I literally was like, meh, one of my favorite characters. And I think that's so fun. Like, people come in and out of view and he grows characters he definitely doesn't have to, giving them agency, giving us backstory, giving us reason to root for them or just scream at them. It's just so addicting. Things are moving, folks. I'm so excited because this series is just so good. Again, like, it's growing and growing and growing. The scale of the battles, the scale of the politics, expanding. Obviously, I have a lot of this third book left to consume, which I'll be reading a chunk of it today, but I have no idea where it's going too. It's just so addicting. Anyway, I fear this series is becoming my new personality trait, but I'm just so addicted. I feel like it's been a long time. I don't know, maybe that's not true, but I just feel like it's so hard to put these books down. It's just good on all fronts, plot and characters. It's like, normally sometimes it's just plot, not characters, but oof, it's so addicting. Utilizing some leftover tofu and green onions, but today's lunch is a shin ramen. Delicious. And lunch is served. Hello, sink's in the way. I'm dressed. I'm about to make some afternoon coffee because we're also about to sit down and read more Ruin and let it ruin my life. At least that's how I'm feeling right now because I am so stressed about this book. I feel like this is just gonna be me. This vlog is just gonna be me fangirling for like 40 minutes, but I feel so alive. My pumpkin filled with coffee. Hello, I have passed the 200 page mark and I have a reading update. And also my friend is gonna come over in a little bit and we're gonna make butternut squash mac and cheese and watch a movie. So I won't be able to get any more reading in until much later tonight, which is okay, though this book is consuming me, to say the least. The third book has been so good. I so far can say, like, at least from what I've read, each book just gets better and better. The story just really builds on itself very well. Nothing feels rushed. No one's like rushing into their roles or their character development. I really appreciate the time that John Gwynne is taking and like thinking about some of our main characters, like where they were book one, where they are now. Like everything feels very like naturally progressed, but also exciting and nerve-wracking to see like some of the weight and responsibility they now have to take on. But you trust and believe in them and you just hope everything is going to work out. Something I do want to say, this third book finally has a character glossary at the front of it. I feel like all of the books need a character glossary. I think there's like maybe 100 characters that are alive or have been introduced in some capacity so far in this series, maybe more. But I'll say, I feel like Malice initially, I was kind of like who, what, where, and why, but kind of once you get situated and you know the groups of the people kind of acting within this world and the locations, it gets a lot easier as new characters are introduced because you can kind of like fit them into these different categories as you've become more comfortable with the world and world building. So if you pick up Malice and you're like, these are a lot of characters, how am I going to keep track? Just give yourself time and grace to get comfortable with everything because it's definitely a bit, at least it was for me, a little bit difficult initially, but it does become easier with time. But Rune, so good so far. I feel like we are getting, things are really progressing in a very stressful fashion. We have more clarity on how the prophecy works and like what's the end game here. We also see our characters begin to act within this. And I think it's particularly interesting with like Corbain's character, the sort of chosen one trope. He is wholly dynamic. So there's lots of people who have been preparing for the day for the chosen one to come and they have plans and ideas about how he should act. But ultimately Corbain, as we've gotten to know him, is still his own person. And so he is going to act too, like how he feels like is best. And I think that is an interesting aspect of this book. Obviously in the evil camp, we have people following the expectations of like what should be happening. And that's what we assume. But obviously in the good guys, they might even have perspectives on what should be done to save the world. But that doesn't mean everyone's gonna listen. And there's like more than one way to do things. And I think that's kind of shown. And like a lot about in this series in a lot of ways is about like decisions and like the slippery slope of decisions and how if you can justify like one bad act, you can keep justifying more and more and more and more. And in stressful times and times of war, like that whole process can be accelerated. You kind of see the unraveling of characters book over book when this sort of event begins to take place, and it's very, very stressful. But yes, 200 pages in. I think this book is well over 700 pages, so I definitely have quite a bit left. I really hope to finish this book for this vlog. And I mean, honestly, anytime I give myself a moment to read, it's all I want to do because I am addicted to it. So anyway, that's my update. Happy there is a character glossary. We are making butternut squash pasta. We got our puree. There's Millie keeping us company. Also cooking up some crispy mushrooms. Pasta. Should be good. And dinner is served. The new Wes Anderson short film.
Well, it's important before I...
The short film was so good. I highly recommend it. It's on Netflix, so it's streamable, which is cool. And just a good length overall. And it's a Roald Dahl book adaptation, which I did not realize until it started. But now I'm gonna get back to reading Ruin. Time to be very emotionally distressed and stressed. Distressed and stressed is the theme of this vlog. So I'm gonna read now. Hello everyone, happy afternoon. Doing a reading check-in. because I haven't done one so far today. But my day has finally slowed down a bit, so I'm about to go sit down and get some reading in. I did read to page 350 last night of Ruin. This book is so good, and I feel like every good thing that's happening, I feel like John Glenn's just gonna like throw in my face with more bad things, which is making me nervous. If I could scream at Veritas, I would spend all day doing that, and that's kind of where I'm at right now. But things are heating up, strategy is unfolding, it's all very compelling. John Glenn writes combat and like military strategy very, very well. And so I'm having a good time. But I'm gonna go read now because lots left to discover. But we've read over 500 pages so far for this vlog, which ain't bad. A little date night OOTD. I'm wearing this brown dress. What are you wearing, Clay?
This shirt and these pants.
They're kind of matching.
We got the same shoes, kind of.
Twins. You're supposed to connect. No, you're supposed to connect. There you go. Yeah. Hi friends, good morning from me and my toast. I wanted to film a vlog update because I've literally just been sitting here reading, screaming into the abyss. I am so not okay. But I am on page 504 of Ruin, so I'm making very good progress. And this book, John Glenn is so good at doing this thing where there's so many characters and everyone's like moving around all the time. So people are constantly like just missing each other, or there's lots of information. Like we know everything, or we know as much as possible because we're reading from lots of different vantage points, lots of different points of views, but there's lots of characters who don't know like most of anything. Like they are purposely being kept in the dark. And it just creates situations where you just want to shake them by their shoulders and be like, open your eyes. And it's just like the most unfortunate things keep happening. And I'm just like, I'm screaming inside, literally outside. Actually, I've literally screamed and I almost threw this book. It's destroying me. From a plot point of view, from a writing point of view, we're really building. The tension is growing and growing. It's growing so much where I finish a chapter and then I'll like skip it. I won't like read ahead, but I'll just like flick. I'm like, when am I going to get to see this character again? Because I'm literally dying. And then you'll read another point of view and then something else will happen and be like, I'm literally dying. And there's just the tension is palpable. Lots of it. The conflicts are also like the battles are getting larger and they're also involving more inputs and players, which I think makes them more interesting. And I just feel like how he is building up these different big plot moments are just very intense and successful. It's emotional. And I just have so many feelings about this whole situation. I definitely feel like I'm gonna be able to finish this book because I can't stop thinking about it. It's like, I don't want to know how it ends because I feel like I'm not gonna be good. But at the same time though, like I need to know what the heck is going to happen. And I swear to God, there's just one character in particular. I mean, there's lots of characters I hate and there's lots of characters I love, but there's like one character that makes me want to scream because he's just like, he just like come on. At some point, you're just being woefully blind on purpose and there's nothing I can do for you. And that's just how I feel about him. Like, come on, my guy, open your eyes. I am once again dressed for not the weather, but I love this like mohair wool sweater. I picked it up in Ireland. But now I'm gonna give myself an afternoon cup of coffee and we're gonna read more of Ruin, which is ruining my life. Have I already made that joke yet in this vlog? Well, if I haven't, there you go. It's accurate. Oop, spilling coffee everywhere. It's just so good. This series is consuming me. Obviously, if you've watched this vlog, you've noticed, but I feel like it's been so long. I mean, I've read a lot of books that I've loved this year, but it's been a minute since I've read a really long series, like a many page series with multiple books where I'm like, all right, well, cancel all my plans. I need to read the next one and the next one and the next one and the next one and the next one. And it feels good, but it's also like all consuming. Like it's like that kind of obsession where you, for right or for wrong, get like nothing else done in your life. Like you're ignoring your work, your friends, your responsibilities. And when, like in some ways it's like, yeah, but in other ways you're just, there's like a disaster left in your wake. Anyway, I'm gonna drink this coffee. I sped through my must-dos this afternoon, and we are going to read 500 pages in. I think this book is just over 700 pages, so I feel like I'm in the home stretch. And what my concern is, this is only book 3. So like, there's still book 4. Guys, I've laundered, I'm in lounge clothes. I'm going to attempt to talk with a little bit of coherency because I've read almost 500 pages of ruin, and I don't know if I've said anything but this book is ruining my life since I've started this book, which is accurate, but let's be a little more specific, shall we? So, overall, going into this third book, I'm really impressed with the ability for John Gwyn to keep the plot feeling fresh. He's able to really have his foot on the gas pedal since the end of the first book, throughout the entirety of the second book, and now almost through the entirety of the third book, and continuously upping the ante, making us constantly not trust him. I also feel like we're constantly looking over our shoulders, nervous and concerned for our favorite characters in this book. Part of what keeps the plot feeling so fresh is just the pure amount of plot and storylines that we're able to follow, but all of them feel like they're given, one, enough attention, so it's not like pointless storylines, especially at this point within the series, but two, all of them are incredibly dynamic. They're evolving and different characters kind of intersect and crisscross each other, so there's lots of like interesting things happening that create like dynamic interaction. And also people's relationships with one another are also evolving, especially as people are finding out more information, for better or for worse. A lot of characters are confronting relationships that maybe they would have never confronted before. We have mothers and sons, very complex things going on there. We have mentor-mentee. We have best friends, relationships that you don't want to put into an uncomfortable spotlight and like ask those hard things, but characters are finally doing it, and it creates a lot of tension and a lot of hurt in my heart, if I'm being honest. Next up, we have military combat. What do I mean when I say John Gwyn's really good at writing combat? And this is true not just in this series, but also his other series. First off, at least in this series, he is able to really clearly articulate the different military strategies he's trying to illustrate throughout his series. And there's lots of different strategies at play too. I am not a military girl, okay? But I feel like he describes everything in a straightforward fashion where you understand what's going on, but he's not being like over the top or annoying with how descriptive he's being with it too. He's really struck a balance with being informative, not annoying, if you know what I mean. Two, I feel like he walks a really good balance between describing and making sure the reader understands the military strategy at play, why different like macro elements are happening in a battle, and we know why there's a winner and a loser depending on the results of different situations. But he's also really good at the micro writing of a battle too. The chaos, the horror, the bloodshed that's occurring also within these moments too. We can strategically see it at a high level, but we're also in it at a micro level, and it is horrifying at the same time. He captures the chaos while not making it like confusing or disjointed to read, which I feel like again is a very difficult thing to do. And in general, I would say there is a lot of military conflict throughout this entire series so far, and again, he's constantly kept it fresh. It's never felt repetitive to me. And also the scaling up of how these different scrimmages or battles kind of all culminate into different like large scale political scenarios is also important too. He's really illustrating how like multiple battles make up a war, and how the results of different battles can impact like one, other battles, but also like large political military movements, which we've seen time and time again throughout the series. Like because of the results of one battle we read maybe at the beginning of book 2, we see it play out again in another battle maybe in the middle of book 3, and like everything is sort of connected in a very satisfying fashion. And the last thing I'm going to touch on is I feel like we have some really interesting relationships in this series. One, we have interesting romantic relationships, which I wasn't expecting. There are multiple romantic plot lines that I'm actually really enjoying, and I feel like that's a rarity when it comes to men writing romance, especially in fantasy novels, so shout out John. Two, but it's not just romance. We also have really interesting like parental relationships, mentor-mentee relationships, lots of compelling characters that love each other in a variety of different ways, familial, friendship, again, romantically, that just makes you love them, root for them, but also you feel so nervous for everyone in terms of like what's going to happen to people, because John Gwynne is not afraid to kill people off or betray us or betray characters. So his ability to write compelling and interesting relationships creates a lot of really good emotional tension as well. And again, all of these relationships really are growing and paced through time, not rushed, which is also very, very satisfying. So, third book, great relationships, great military progression, really compelling writing. And the last thing I will say in this, and especially given that this is setting up the fourth and final installment, we're getting more insight into the prophecy. We're getting more, our characters, especially our core characters who are being really centered into this prophecy, are finally given kind of the opportunity to have agency to act as a leader. And you're seeing sort of this rallying element of our characters, which I think is just really inspiring and cool to read. But we're just getting like more answers to questions that you've definitely had since the beginning of the book, and the reveals are satisfying, but also I feel like John Gwynne is going to be keeping us on our toes. I feel like he likes to do this bait and switch sort of thing where it seems straightforward. He's doing something very classic, but then there's like a pivot and you're like, oh dang. And that's why you can't put these books down. Hopefully that's a little more clarity, a little more of a review, because I don't know if I've really done that yet, especially for this third book. I'm gonna sit down now and actually read more. My hope is to finish this third book today and keep giving you my thoughts and feelings. I feel like the end of this is going to be incredibly intense because, spoiler alert, we're gearing towards another battle. And I'm not sure if I'm emotionally ready for it, but I have about 250 pages of this book left. So let's get reading. I deserve some chocolate for my troubles. The troubles that John Gwynne is putting me through. And also, coffee. Clay made a fresh pot of coffee, which I'm grateful for. Thanks, Clay. So we're going to drink this. I'm going to read and be unwell. Also, I finished the puzzle. It was my primary source of stress relief this week. It was a really good one, and it makes me wish I lived inside of it. If I could move inside of a puzzle, I definitely would move here. So I read another 150 pages just now, very quick, and transparently, just like what the heck, John Gwynne, is how I'm feeling. Oh my gosh, Corbin, he's going through it, I'm going through it. I have 100 pages left of this book, and don't even get me started on Fidel and that whole situation. Oh my gosh. I finished it. What have I done the past 3 hours? Literally nothing besides read Ruin. You kind of reach a point in this book where you're just like, you have to know how it's gonna end. And like, why did I also think I could finish this book and just like carry on with the rest of my life? Because I need to read book 4 immediately. But I did finish this. I've also read almost 1,000 pages of John Gwynne this week. The ending of this, I don't even know. I was like, oh, okay, I can see the plot progression. We're going into book 4. We're gonna be not good, but like, I know maybe what the fourth one might look like. I have literally no idea now. Where are we going? I don't know. But there's also some things that happen at the end of this that like horrified me, heartbroken. But also there's a couple things where I was like, yes! It was like, so like, he really balanced some satisfying things that we have just been waiting for, begging for. Like questions answered, things finally, like the dominoes finally hitting. We're like, yes, that was so satisfying. But then there was other things where I was like, no, screaming, broken, sad. So he gave me something, but then he took so much away. And yeah, I finished Ruin, and it was really good. Maybe my favorite of the series so far, each book just continually getting better and better, but I have no idea how this series is gonna wrap up. But I did allow myself to read these 2 books. And we did that, so yeah. Maybe this is where I end this vlog. I've read almost 1,000 pages of the Faithful and the Fallen series this week between book 3 Ruin and the second book Valor. I'm a broken person, but a happy person. And I will be reading book 4 probably really, really soon. Sometimes it's worth giving into your fantasy hyperfixation. I also feel like this hyperfixation is not over for me. But I hope you guys enjoyed this vlog, and I will see you soon with another one soon, hopefully featuring other books.